Hello, good evening, everyone. Welcome to Bandra Film Festival live session once again. Thank you for joining us. Today we have a very special guest with who we are going to do a festival run, and we'll know in some time. Yes, and he's joined us. Hello. I'm so sorry, my network was giving me trouble. A lot of
That's
trouble.
okay. Okay, I was ready. I even went and showered again. I'm looking like
I believe it's
uh,
really hot. Even here, it's
uh,
really hot.
it's humid. That's a problem. The moment you shut the AC, it's very humid in Delhi. I don't know why. It's not
Here
like we.
also,
It's
in
not like we
Mumbai also.
a
Yeah.
lot of rain. Yeah, but the Bombay में तो होता है ना. The Delhi में it's anyway. It is what it is. So,
It is. So
so
thank you,
what are
Aseem.
your festivals?
Thank you so much for joining us, and
Ah,
very welcome to you at Bandra Film Festival. I would just like to introduce our guest, Aseem Chhabra, and there's a whole list of his accomplishments. So he's the festival director at the New York Indian Film Festival. He's also the author of the biographies of some popular actors like Shashi Kapoor, Irfan Khan, Priyanka Chopra. You've been a film journalist with the New York Times, with Scroll, with BBC.com, Mumbai Mirror, to name a few. You've also been a commentator on Indian cinema and popular culture at CNN, BBC, and ABC's Good Morning America. And you've also been a voice of the shadow puppet in Nina Pali's fetching animated film Sita Sings the Blues. And now it's our privilege to have you, and you've been here with us in some time. He's the advisor at the Bandra Film Festival. Wow, that's something, Aseem. Quite a
yeah,
lot.
I get very. You
You're
know, thank you.
blushing. You're blushing. So, do tell us about your journey, Aseem. How did it all start? You know, the full festival culture and the festival run that you've been programming, that you've been doing.
Um, you and I have a common friend, the person by the name of Pooja Kohli, who's in California right now, I think. Uh, it kind of started with her. I mean, so I was writing um, in the late 1990s, early 2000s. I was writing, and I had a journalism degree many years before that. I started writing about films. I was writing for Rediff.com, for instance, and then the early 2000s, I started writing for Boston Globe and Philadelphia Inquirer, where I would sort of interview people like Meera Nair and Deepa Mehta and Ismail Merchant. And it was basically the idea was to explain to Americans about Indian cinema through the eyes of these Indian American filmmakers. So I was doing a lot of that kind of work, Gurinder Chadda.
Yeah.
Um, and I started going to some film. I used to go to a film festival in Colorado every year, the Telluride Film Festival. So in fact, I went there again after a gap of 5 years. I think this is my 23rd year in a row. It's held over the first weekend of September. Um, there was the lady in New York City. Her name is Arun Shivdasani, who started an organization called the Indo-American Art Council. It was an umbrella organization which is still existing and very active. It's run by a different group of people now, and it was basically the idea was to bring Indian arts to people of New York. So whether it was dance, it was theater, it was arts itself, literature, and the most important of all was the cinema. So the film festival was sort of the crown jewel, and has stayed the crown jewel. So Arun started the film festival. Originally, it was the idea was a diaspora festival, but then she realized that she was getting a lot of films from India. Um, the film festival is now 22 years old. So Pooja Kohli, who helped launch the Bandra Film Festival, also at some stage became the festival director of the New York Indian Film Festival. It had a different iteration. It was called the Mahindra Indo-American Arts Council Film Festival because Mahindra was our prime sponsor.
Right.
Um, and I talked to Pooja at some stage, and she brought me on board as one of the programming team members. So there were 4 or 5 of us, and we would watch a lot of films and, you know, select whatever we could. And we could do conversation with filmmakers who would come to New York to present their films. After Pooja left, there's somebody else took over for a few years. And then after that gentleman left, I sort of raised my hand and I said, you know, I've been doing this as a programmer for a while. Can I step in as a festival director? And that was in 2011. And that's the time when the festival's name changed from Mahindra Indo-American Arts Council Film Festival to the New York Indian Film Festival. And we also shifted the time. It used to be earlier in November. It was shifted to around end April, early May kind of a thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I was the board hired me as a festival director. And so that's 2011. And I think I've done, this year was my 11th or 12th year. I lose count of it if I start to count numbers. The last 2 years we had to do a virtual festival because of the pandemic, theaters were shut in New York. But until 2019, we used to do a physical festival where we would show about 70 plus films to reach 80. Half of them were shorts, of course, over a period of a week to 8. And you rent theaters. There are many sort of not huge, but they're multiplex theaters in New York which focus on independent small art house theaters. So we would rent that. So we would have in the Lower East Side, the Village East Side, the theater. So there would be 3 screens, and we would start 3 films simultaneously. Well, 6, 6:15, 6:30, and then 9, 9:50, 9:30. So we would be showing 6 films every day. We'll have the opening and the closing, and we would also on Saturdays and Sundays we would have a full day of films, including some films of kids also. The idea was to bring the best of films from India, and also diaspora films also. So we were, and we've been very particular about trying to get films in different languages. So it's not just Hindi films. In fact, this past year, I think we had about 3 or 4 Kannada films. We had about 3 films in Malayalam. We got a couple of Assamese films, Bengali films, Marathi cinema, very, very good. Of course, we get Hindi films also. And we played films in so many different languages, Khasi language. We played films in Nepali, which is spoken in parts of India, and Sikkim, parts of Bengal also. Telugu, Tamil, Malayalam, Karnataka in any case. And these are all new independent films. Our one goal always has been that we want to do New York premieres. I mean, we don't pretend to be that big. Like, there are festivals like Cannes and Berlin and Venice and all. They want world premieres. Completely understand that. Other festivals like Toronto, for instance, they'll insist on Canada premieres or at least North America premieres. We can't, we don't have that muscle power to do that. And I think it's also not fair to filmmakers if they want to go to some other festival. Because around the time we do our festival, just before that is the LA Indian Film Festival, Los Angeles. So we're filming in Los Angeles, which is fine. I mean, we're not asking for a US premiere as long as we can get the New York premiere. And the reason why we want the New York premiere is, again, it's not a prestige issue as much as if the film is already played in New York, then you tend to lose an audience.
Right. Oh.
Especially when we were doing physical festivals until 2019, we want to make sure that the audience, the potential audience that we get, has not had a chance to see this film before.
Right.
And that's very important.
Yeah. To maintain the novelty of the. So I think you read a very important, I think just 2 important, points that you raised is firstly, the whole comparison between a virtual festival and a physical festival. Do you really see that changing the face of viewership in, the entire world and the accessibility, of these films to, the audience? Festivals are a platform. They're a wonderful platform of discovery. We think that, the main reason why Bandra Film Festival was launched, and, so you so rightly said that Pooja, she was a festival director, because at that moment only the main concept behind Bandra Film Festival it was conceived at that time. She felt that it's too less a number of days for all the films to be showcased, and there's so many stories to be told. So, the whole virtual part vis-a-vis the physical part, and the accessibility and a platform of discovery, like not only for the festivals but for also for the maker. So it's a whole new, like a beautiful discovery of 5-minute films, 2.5-minute films, and
Yeah.
now they have that platform to be showcased on a virtual platform.
Yeah.
So do you
Yeah.
think that it has kind of helped in many ways?
Yeah. Um, yeah, it's really important for us because I mean, what happens is that many of these films, uh, they need to break someplace. They don't necessarily have a very potential, a very big market space for a theatrical run kind of a thing. So they need to be available on some platform where people can watch it for a few times or whatever. Um, and then there's some buzz that's created. The word of mouth kind of a buzz that's created, or an article's written, and a lot of actually what's very impressive. Many of the filmmakers in different regions of India, they're able to get. So for instance, in Karnataka, there were quite a few articles that I think we were showing 3 or 4 Kannada films for the first time, and there were quite a
Yeah,
few articles from that point of view. Last year, for instance, again when we did the virtual festival, we opened and closed with 2 Malayalam films, and both happened to be made by women filmmakers. That it was. I didn't go. That was not the plan, but it just happened as a coincidence. It was a beautiful coincidence, and that became a very big newsworthy story in Kerala, which helped at least one of the films, Ran Kalyani. The other one, Mutan, of course, people already knew about it. It had already traveled to the Toronto Film Festival. But Ran
yeah,
Kalyani, people, were able to hear about it more. So yeah, that's the whole thing. You give them a platform, and you're giving audiences a chance to see films, especially in New York, um, who may not be able to, because Bollywood films get released in New York.
yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
so
Yeah, like
that's the whole.
your current selection of films at the NYIFF is amazing, and I truly did want to see. And it's such a good opportunity, because virtually now we can access the films and watch it, and really see so many wonderful stories being told in regional language also.
So something that it was actually something that really it was no rocket science, and we never thought about doing this before. But the fact that you were able to do the virtual festival, you are no longer restricted to just audiences coming from the 5 boroughs of New York City and maybe from New Jersey, Connecticut. You can open up across US. You can open up North America, so that's Canada and Mexico.
Yeah,
Uh, all our shorts were available globally, and many of the feature films also people have said that they want to show them globally. Um,
yeah,
doesn't it's a matter of programming done by the platform that we've been working with. Basically, they just need to program how to geo block the films. Um,
yeah,
doesn't cost a lot of money to do that, and you're able to suddenly expand the brand,
yeah,
and also
yeah.
give access to the same films in different parts of the world. Basically, yeah.
That's so wonderful. So, really coming down to the real deal, the programming process. He just mentioned. How do you get films for the festival, and how do you select? What do you look for in a film before selecting it?
So, I mean, uh, practically every major film festival in the world now, TIFF and everybody else also, they go through there's a website called Film Freeway, which
Yeah,
is a
yeah,
where you can submit Film Freeway, and you don't just submit the link to the film, you also submit the cast and crew and the photographs. It's the press kit basically, because in the event that we select the film, then we use all of that information to put it up on our website. Now, that process has already started. In fact, we've already started getting submissions as of I think middle of September or early September, and that'll continue until end of this year, early next year, end of January, something like that. But and that's where my role. I mean, so those films we are watching. I have a team of 6 people, or I think it's 6 including me. So we're going to be watching them. Some have already started watching them. Um, but I'm also going after films. I mean, I do that through the year because
yeah,
the film journalist hat, for instance, becomes a real help to me. That I'm aware of what films are playing in Toronto, what film played in Venice, what film there was an Indian film, and there were two Indian films for instance, in Cannes, in Berlin, wherever Indian films played. And I've already watched them and I've written about them. I've interviewed the director. So that's a separate sort of a part of my brain, basically. But then start to approach the same people again and say, hey, listen, we would love to show your film in New York also. And they do want to. They want to come to Indian festivals. And there are a range of Indian festivals now across the US, North America, in other parts of Singapore, Melbourne. There's some pretty wonderful Indian film festivals happening there. So they want to go all of those places because in addition to reaching a wider audience, they want to reach out to especially Indian and South Asian audiences. So I go after those films. I ask them to submit them or send me a link or whatever it is. How do we go about selecting films? It's a question of we have to have a consensus within our group. Everybody writes comments. All the films have to be seen. Last year, because of the pandemic, I think the submissions were a little less this year, but we would get about 200 submissions, features, documentaries, and lots of shorts.
Wow.
And now, I'm not saying I will watch 200 films. It's just beyond me. But among all 6 of us combined together, all the films have to be because people have taken the pain to submit them. There's a small submission fee we charge, which is basically our management fee or something like that, to taking care of the business. So all the films that we've seen, and then we leave comments, we discuss. Sometimes we take a vote. Sometimes I overrule. I pretend to be and so it's a happy sort of a balanced kind of a thing. You also want to make sure that you don't want too many films in one particular language only. You want to get good representation from across India. That's very, very important. This past year, for instance, we just had a virtual festival in June. We got way too many. And it was good. There were many films which about children as protagonists, not necessarily kids. Films only for kids. Some are more adult themes, but lots of kids. And we also nominate different categories, acting categories, including child actor categories, and then we have independent juries that do it. So that became the hardest things to nominate for a group of us because there were just so many wonderful children's performances, and it's not like we went seeking that. So every year, some sort of themes emerge.
Yeah, on their own.
On their own, it's not like I specifically do that. So
it's like a forecast of the coming season, like how there's a forecast in every I'm just talking about fashion forecast, like the festive forecast that more children-oriented films are this year have come. But
I remember 2 years ago there were a couple of films which had father-son relationship themes. I remember there was a Malayalam film, there was a few other films in different languages where the father-son issues were being raised. I thought it was very interesting. It's like, how did it happen that we got 3 or 4 films with the father-son stories?
Wow.
Yeah.
So do these festivals, like, the makers sometimes are so passionate about, I have to submit my film for festivals. So this is like, the benefit part of it. Do the festivals really help the makers? How do the festivals help the makers, rather? I'm sure it must be helping them.
Well, I think especially for smaller independent films, and there are so many. I mean, many of these films start. NFDC has a film bazaar. It's held in Goa, of course. The last year was a virtual. This year also they'll do it virtual in November. And by the way, I get a lot of films from there. I mean, I seek, because I've been attending that for many, many years now, and watch them, and you immediately start to approach the filmmakers. So that becomes a launching part. But I'm not the only one there. There are other film programmers also, including programmers from bigger festivals. I mean, there's somebody from Venice and somebody from Berlin, and Toronto also sitting and watching the same films available. They're of course, the bigger international film festivals. They have films from all over the world. I'm only showing in India. It's very hard for many of these filmmakers to be able to it's how do you get your film out there in the world, because uh, theatrical distribution, marketing, etc., gets very, very expensive. And initially people are very excited about Netflix and Amazon Prime. And Netflix and Amazon Prime have become very careful in terms of the kind of films they take, because they also want numbers, and they want eyeballs and viewerships, and they want sort of films that have larger mass appeal films. Smaller indie films still struggle. There are many other platforms. There are platforms that are focusing on just Malayalam films. There are platforms that are focusing on just Bengali films. And then other independent OTT platforms also. But yet, before these films go to those platforms, if they can go to film festivals, and if there's a actual live physical audience,
Right.
and the filmmakers get a chance to have an interaction. We invite filmmakers to New York. They're able to talk to the audience. They're able to get the feedback.
Right.
If they get press, all of that helps them to be able to take the film to the next level, to sell it or whatever.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to ask about the monetary gains. Do they make any money? Is it like, or it's just a platform for them to move forward, like an advancement towards,
They
gaining.
may, uh, filmmakers don't make any money through film festivals. There are some films which are with sales agents, and sales agents charge a small amount of money, but we don't pay sales agent, because we're bringing people to New York. We're giving them a New York premiere. We're flying
Right.
them to New York, them in a hotel for a few days. That's a lot
That's
more than actually
that's
what we sales agents. So
right.
initially, the idea is not to make money as such, but initially the idea basically is to get your film out there, get your
Right.
film by
To be seen.
a
Yeah.
audience, a select kind of wide audience. It's a kind of discerning audience that will then, through the word of mouth, be able to um,
Right.
spread the word about yourself, and the kind of press we get also, and not just in New York. I mean, as I said to you, the regional language films get a lot of press in different regions of India, and that
Yeah.
certainly helps the filmmakers. But the thing is that unless it's selected at an international at a film festival like the Manzar New York Indian Film Festival, the press is not right about it. It becomes news sort of worthy that it's playing at some festival, or it won some award at some festival.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
the thing.
That's the thing. That's wonderful. What do you have to say about Bandra Film Festival?
I think it's been really fun, because I think you guys have, and I've talked to you, and brought some films also. There are films that, in fact, some of them played a knife also, the New York Indian Film Festival or other festivals. They've been out of circulation for a very long time. You showed Rock, for instance. I programmed Rock twice. Once there was a restored version of Rock that Aditya Bhattacharya, the
Yes.
filmmaker, gave it to us, and then second time. So Aditya is his father was Basu Bhattacharya, and Aditya's maternal grandfather was Bimal Roy.
Well,
So we did a festival of 3 restored films from 3 generations. So we showed Bimal Roy's Sujata, which had just been restored at that point in time. I forget. I think it was the NFTC of the Pune Film Institute.
okay.
Anubhav was restored, which was Basu Bhattacharya's film, and then we showed a restored version of Rock again.
Wow. And
Um, so
yeah.
the Rock has not been shown for a very long time, and many people are very curious about it. I mean, it is Amir Khan's first film. It has sort of things attached to it. I mean, of course,
Right.
wonderful performance by Pankaj Kapoor. There are scenes that are shot in this location where Shah Rukh Khan built his house, Mannat, eventually.
Yes. Yes. Manat. Yes.
So, but Bandra Film Festival, what I think what's really great is you guys are not looking for brand new films, but you're
Yeah.
bringing films that have been out of circulation. You're bringing films that people have been talking about, or people may not have seen for a very long time, and they're not streaming anywhere. Nobody buys DVDs anymore. In any case, and DVDs are not available. So
Yeah.
then it becomes one more chance opportunity for people to catch these films. So yeah, I think it's a very cool idea.
Thank you, all the hidden gems, and thanks to you for suggesting and recommending and advising us on, the great gems that have been hidden in the past, and like you rightly said, they've not been in circulation, and how to see it. So that also is like I mean, that is the main mission of Bandra Film Festival. And of course, to give a platform to filmmakers who don't have access to, the big marketing strategies and short films. And, they're wonderful stories. Like, so many short films have been taken in by, these platforms to be showcased
Right.
because they're so interestingly made, and especially during the lockdown where, the movement was so minimal. But yet, the films that came about at that time were really amazing, and they're still currently streaming on Bandra Film Festival.
So I have to
So
festival is currently showing this film called She, which has Rasika Duggal. That might be Rasika's first feature
yes,
from graduate from.
yes, yes. It's going live on Monday. Yeah, tomorrow.
Okay, so it's opening tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
Very strange, kind of a very gripping, powerful film about a woman who gets obsessed by the statue of a goddess, um,
Yes,
and made in black and white. But I think that the
yes,
black and white adds to the thriller sort of
right. The whole
element to
mystery
it.
part. Yeah, there's a
And
mystery.
fantastic in it. I mean, she's good in everything she does, and she's been in so many. She's been in these shows like Mirzapur, etc. She does so much work. She was in A Suitable Boy last year, but that was her first piece of work. So I think everyone should watch Share.
Yeah,
Um,
that it means to. So it was shot in a I think in 4 days, and in very minimal budget. And I think this is just a little trivia that when the the editing was going on, so the director Karan Gaur, he's like, no, I'll make it black and white because I think the color was not adding to the mystery element like
oh,
you. So and
yeah.
even Frozen. Frozen, Shivaji Chandrabhushan's film also is so stark in its message. The whole
But Frozen
backdrop.
has scenes in it, right?
I'm sorry.
Frozen has some color scenes in it.
No, it's completely black and white.
Black and white. मैं भूल गया. अच्छा.
It's still streaming. It was our opening film
Yeah,
for Bandra Film Festival. Still streaming.
yeah.
It
I
was
I
wonderful.
remember when it was. I don't think it was released in theaters, or must have been had a very small theatrical release. And then the DVD came
Yeah,
out. So
very
uh,
small. Yeah, in Ladakh, I think.
yeah, I was very happy that I reviewed Share. Yeah.
Wonderful. And so, Aseem, do tell us something, your advice on, to filmmakers who are planning to, submit their films to festivals. Anything that you would like to tell them to keep in mind, the topmost thing that will help them in kind of, pushing their film forward.
I think these are strategies that filmmakers have to make. There are films that come my way every year. There are some films I want, and I'm in conversation with the filmmaker. They become friends of mine. I've chatted with them and all, and then suddenly a bigger international film festival. There was a film this year, for instance. I couldn't program it because suddenly the Shanghai Film Festival wanted an international premiere. That film had already been in India, so that was the world premiere, and then the international and Shanghai's festival was 1 week or 2 weeks after our New York Indian Film Festival. So I lost it, but I completely understand. Filmmakers have to make these difficult choices. Uh,
Yeah.
so while they want to go to different degrees of festivals, bigger film festivals, to even the ones run by um, Indian organizations. Um, the bigger film festivals sometimes make a lot more demands on them, and they have to sort of cave in because you want to show a film at the Shanghai Festival. That's really a very good exposure.
Right.
So those are things that people have to understand. A lot of young filmmakers, they make their film. They're very good at what they do, but they don't know how to go beyond that.
Yeah.
How do you take the film to festivals? How do you take which festival to go to? Some festivals are not going to be held until March or something like that, but your film is ready now. Do you wait for 6 months because that festival is asking for India premiere or world premiere, or do you start to show it elsewhere? Those are difficult choices they have to make, and many times filmmakers call me for my advice, and many times I even tell them, look, you have to do what is best for your film. I would love to take your film. I would
Yeah.
love to show film festival, but I do understand that if you want a slightly bigger audience and you want a bigger exposure or something like that, maybe you want to wait, or go to the other festival. There's a wonderful film called Pedro, for instance, which is playing in Busan and at the BFI London Film Festival now. I think Pedro waited almost a year before it was selected.
Wow.
They wanted, a bigger festival to launch them, then they would come to other festivals. So yeah.
Great. Thank you so much, Aseem. And we're not going to let go of you that easily, Bandra Film Festival. We're going to continue to hound you to share with us all your, expert advice and, your so many years of precious experience. And, we really can't wait to showcase many, many films that you suggest and that, you have seen and that you're so passionate about. And thank you so much for giving this time to us, your Sunday evening. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll be in touch. And thank you guys for joining. Thank you everyone for joining us. There are a whole lot of people
I
joined.
see. Uh, uh, I see Deepika Surabji is there. Hi, Deepika. And I'm sure the friends who sort of were there earlier.
Yeah,
So yeah, cool.
lot of
Thank you. Yeah,
thank you so much. Have a great day and great coming years of great cinema and telling them and sharing that information to us also.
right.
Thank you.
All right. Bye bye.
Right, take care. Thank you so
Bye
much. Bye.
bye.